died by suicide in a jail cell. They were poster boys for the New York City party scene in the 90s. The pair reportedly met in 1990 after Epstein bought a mansion in Palm Beach, just a few miles from Mar-a-Lago. As Epstein was climbing the ranks of high society, Trump appeared to be in his social circle. In 1992, Trump and Epstein were spotted by NBC cameras at a Mar-a-Lago party, laughing and dancing to the hit song Rhythm is a Dancer by Snap. In 1995, Epstein moved into a Manhattan townhouse 1 mile away from Trump's penthouse in Trump Tower. Trump flew on Epstein's private jet between New York and Florida, and in 2002, the president famously told New York Magazine that Epstein was a terrific guy. Trump told the magazine, "He is a lot of fun to be with. It is even said that he likes beautiful women as much as I do, and many of them are on the younger side." In 2004, Epstein and Trump had a falling out. When Trump outbid him on a mansion, he later flipped. Trump and Epstein reportedly did not speak for 15 years before his death. Epstein was convicted of paying teenage girls for sex in 2008. In 2019, federal prosecutors accused Epstein of a sex trafficking scheme, but he died before the case went to trial. The president has not been accused of any wrongdoing in the Epstein case, but Trump's name is among the dozens of celebrities, politicians, and business moguls connected to the billionaire. Though Epstein has been dead for almost 6 years, his name has come up again and again since the White House tried to close the book on the case during Trump's second term. Even as Trump supporters push for the Justice Department to release more evidence, Trump claims to be baffled by the attention.
He's dead for a long time. He was never a big factor in terms of life. I don't understand what the interest or what the fascination is. I really don't.
Long before Donald Trump
angry. We have a president who tells us to move on from Epstein because it doesn't matter. Are you guys still talking about this? Seriously? And yet he still talks about the 2020 election fraud. He talks about the Hunter Biden laptop. He talks about all this stuff from 5-6 years ago, and he tells us to move on from the Epstein trial or the Epstein case. People like me will not stop talking about this. I feel so betrayed and so angry. This is not what I voted for.
I'm concerned about being able to trust Donald Trump to keep his word. In his campaign, he said he was going to let us know all of the facts about this. And now he's saying, go away, don't pay attention to it.
These Epstein files, we were told that there was going to be released. There was this client list that was going to be released. And the fact that it's suddenly gone away and he's trying to gaslight us is like a punch in the gut to MAGA.
What do you mean by personal relationships?
Have you socialized with him?
Yes, sir.
Yes?
Yes, sir.
Have you ever socialized with Donald Trump in the presence of females under the age of 18?
Though I'd like to answer that question, at least today, I'm going to have to assert my 5th, 6th, and 14th Amendment rights, sir.
Have you ever had a personal relationship?
At the same time, Mr. Trump acknowledged that even releasing all that testimony might not be enough for the troublemakers and radical left lunatics. Earlier, Mr. Trump said that supporters pressing him to release more Epstein material are weaklings who have fallen for a Democratic hoax. With some conservative critics saying now that the president is part of a cover-up, attention is turning to the relationship between the two men. New York Times White House correspondent Luke Broadwater has written about what's known about the Trump-Epstein relationship. Luke, how far back do these two men go?
Well, we know they've known each other since at least the late 1980s or 1990, when Jeffrey Epstein purchased a property in Palm Beach. Shortly thereafter, the two men became friendly. They ran in the same circles. They were both from New York. They were both rich. They both had a love for nightlife and for attending flashy parties and being surrounded by women. And so for about 15 years, as best we can tell, they were pretty tight. Trump flew on Epstein's private jet, Palm Beach in New York at least 7 times. And it isn't until 2004 when they really have a falling out, when they become rivals over a real estate property in Florida. They both wanted the same oceanfront mansion. And Donald Trump and Epstein sort of become rivals or even enemies after that.
And after that break, after the break over that real estate, did they ever get back together, or was that it?
Not as best we can tell. There's no public record of them interacting after about 2004. And Trump himself, after Epstein died in jail, said he hadn't talked to him in 15 years. And we haven't found any evidence that contradicts that.
What was his reaction or public reaction when Epstein was arrested on sex trafficking in 2019?
Well, he tried to distance himself from any connection to Epstein, and he called him a creep. There have been times when he called for a full investigation. There have been times when he tried to suggest maybe Democrats were involved in wrongdoing in connection to Epstein. And there have been other times when he sort of hedged and said he didn't want everything out and that he believed maybe innocent people could be unfairly maligned. And he even expressed sympathy for Miss Maxwell, who was Jeffrey Epstein's former girlfriend, who's now serving a prison sentence for helping him with his sex trafficking ring. And she was convicted of that and is doing a 20-year prison sentence currently.
You say he was sort of ambivalent about releasing this stuff during the campaign, but it was certainly a big part of the MAGA base that was supporting him, and now he's trying to get them to move on. Do you think they will?
It doesn't seem like it. You know, he famously bragged he could shoot someone on Fifth Avenue and wouldn't lose any supporters. This seems to be the one issue, though, where he's really put himself in a political fix. His base has been adamant that all these files be released. If you look at sort of right-wing message boards or social media posts, really ardent supporters of Donald Trump are turning on him over this issue. They're saying he's becoming, like the swamp. He's part of a cover-up. And so him saying move on does not appear to be working. Maybe it's working with some of the Republicans on Capitol Hill. Maybe it's working with, a few talk show hosts. But by and large, the base seems to be demanding that every piece of information about Jeffrey Epstein and his crimes come out. As you know, there's widespread belief that there were rich and famous men who abused women along with Jeffrey Epstein, and people want to see those men brought to justice. And to date, it's really only been Jeffrey Epstein and Maxwell who have faced any legal repercussions.
Luke Broadwater, The New York Times, thank you very much.
Thank you.
To use his own driver to drive him between jail and his office and other appointments. In the end, Epstein served almost 13 months before being released for a year of probation. He was placed on house arrest until August 2010. While on probation, he was allowed numerous trips on his corporate jet to his residences in Manhattan and the US Virgin Islands. He was allowed long shopping trips and to walk around Palm Beach for exercise. After a contested hearing in January 2011 and an appeal, he stayed registered in New York State as a Level 3 sex offender, meaning that he was considered a high risk of repeat offense. This status would be a lifelong designation. Since he was in a maelstrom of trouble, Epstein opted to capitalize on the deviant ways of his clients and acquaintances to line his pockets with whatever monies could be generated. It was during this time that Epstein installed concealed cameras in various places on his properties as a means to record sexual activity with underage girls by prominent people for criminal purposes, such as blackmail. Ghislaine Maxwell, Epstein's close companion, told a friend that Epstein's private island in the Virgin Islands was completely wired for video, and the friend believed that Maxwell and Epstein were videotaping everyone on the island as an insurance policy. Epstein's mansion in New York was said to be wired extensively with a video surveillance system. Epstein allegedly lent girls to powerful people to ingratiate himself with them and also to gain possible blackmail information. According to the Department of Justice, Epstein kept a cache of compact discs locked in his safe in his New York mansion with handwritten labels that included the description, young girl's name plus the client's name. Epstein partially confirmed that he had blackmail material when he, off the record, told a New York Times reporter in 2018 that he had dirt on powerful people, including information regarding their sexual tendencies and recreational drug use. Years had passed, but just like a leopard, an animal's spots cannot be changed. On July 6, 2019, Epstein was arrested at Teterboro Airport in New Jersey on sex trafficking charges. He was jailed at the Metropolitan Correctional Center in New York City, which has held prisoners such as John Gotti, Joaquin El Chapo Guzman, and Paul Manafort. According to witnesses and sources on the day of Epstein's arrest, about a dozen FBI agents forced open the door to his Manhattan townhouse with Reddit search warrants. The search of his townhouse turned up evidence of sex trafficking and also found hundreds, and perhaps thousands, of sexually suggestive photographs of fully or partially nude females. Some of the images were confirmed as those of underage females. In a locked safe, compact discs were found with handwritten labels with various incriminating descriptions. Also found in the safe was $70,000 in cash, 48 diamonds, and a fraudulent Austrian passport which expired in 1987. The passport had numerous entrance and exit stamps, including entrance stamps that showed the use of the passport to enter France, Spain, the United Kingdom, and Saudi Arabia in the 1980s. On July 8, 2019, prosecutors with the Public Corruption Unit of the Southern District of New York charged Epstein with sex trafficking and conspiracy to traffic minors for sex. The grand jury indictment alleged that literally dozens of underage girls were brought into Epstein's mansions for sexual encounters. Judge Kenneth Mara was then tasked to decide whether the non-prosecution agreement that protected Epstein from the more serious charges should still stand. Epstein's lawyers pleaded with the court to allow Epstein to post bail. They offered to post up to $600 million in bond, which included $100 million from his brother Mark, so he could leave jail and submit to house arrest in his New York City mansion. Thankfully, United States District Judge Richard M. Berman denied the request on July the 18th, saying that Epstein posed a danger to the public and a serious flight risk to avoid prosecution. The worm had begun to turn. On July the 23rd, 2019, Epstein was found injured and semi-conscious at 1:30 a.m. on the floor of his cell. He had serious marks around his neck that were suspected to be the result of either a suicide attempt or an assault. His then cellmate, former New York City police officer Nicholas Tartaglione, who was charged with 4 counts of murder, was questioned about Epstein's condition. He denied having any knowledge of what happened. Epstein himself said he recollected nothing. According to NBC News, 2 sources said that Epstein might have tried to hang himself, a third said the injuries were not serious and could have been staged, and a 4th source said that an assault by his cellmate had not been ruled out. After that incident, Epstein was placed on suicide watch. Just 6 days later, on July the 29th, Epstein was taken off suicide watch and placed in a special housing unit with another inmate. Epstein's close associates referred to him as in good spirits. The jail informed the Justice Department when Epstein was placed in the special housing unit that he would have a cellmate and that a guard would check in on Epstein's cell every 30 minutes. These procedures were not followed on the night of his death. On August the 9th, Epstein's cellmate was transferred out, and there was never a replacement cellmate brought in. Later in the evening, in violation of the jail's normal procedures, Epstein was not checked every 30 minutes. The 2 guards who were assigned to check his jail unit that night were said to have fallen asleep, rendering them incapable of checking in on him for about 3 hours. It was revealed later that the guards falsified related records. 2 cameras in front of Epstein's cell were also said to have malfunctioned that night. Epstein was found dead in his cell at the Metropolitan Correctional Center in New York City at 6:30 a.m. EDT on August 10, 2019. The Bureau of Prisons said life-saving measures commenced immediately upon the discovery of Epstein's body. Emergency responders were called in and he was rushed to a hospital. On August the 10th, the Bureau of Prisons and U.S. Attorney General William Barr called the death an apparent suicide, although no final determination had been made. Due to violations of normal jail procedures on the night of his death, such as the aforementioned removal of his cellmate without a replacement, the falling asleep of 2 guards who were meant to check in on him, the malfunction of 2 cameras in front of his cell, along with Epstein's knowledge of compromising information about famous people, his death generated doubt about his apparent suicide, and speculation immediately touched off that he was murdered. Before he died, Epstein was reportedly depositing funds into other prisoners' accounts as a means to gain favor with them or buy protection. Days before his death, on August the 8th, Jeffrey Epstein signed his last will and testament. The signing of the will was witnessed by 2 attorneys who knew him. His will named 2 longtime employees as executors and immediately gifted all of his assets and any assets remaining in his estate to a trust. An autopsy of Epstein's body was conducted on August the 11th by New York City's chief medical examiner, Barbara Sampson. Epstein's lawyers also sent famed pathologist Michael Baden to personally observe the city's autopsy. Following the procedure, the medical examiner's office reported that Epstein had indeed hung himself using a sheet from his bed. The preliminary result of the autopsy concluded that Epstein had sustained multiple breaks in his neck bones. Among the bones broken in Epstein's neck was the hyoid bone. Such breaks of the hyoid bone can occur from those who hang themselves, but they are more common in victims of homicide by strangulation. A 2010 study found broken hyoids in 1/4 of cases of hangings, and a larger study conducted from the year 2010 to 2016 found hyoid damage in just 16 of 264 cases. This equates to just 6% of cases of hangings. Hyoid bone breaks are more common in older individuals as bones become more brittle upon reaching middle age. Forensic pathologist Cyril Wecht noted that hanging by leaning forward would not result in broken cervical bones. Multiple studies have found different percentages for both manners of death, thus yielding any clear picture of what transpired that night in his cell, the cause for much debate and speculation. Epstein's estate independent pathologist Michael Baden, who was at the examination, was unable to discuss the result since, as of August the 16th, he was bound by a gagging order from the medical examiner's office and Epstein's estate. Epstein's lawyers released a joint statement following the report of the medical examiner, expressing that they are not satisfied with the results of the autopsy, challenging the conclusions and saying that a more complete response would be forthcoming. Epstein's lawyers also indicated that the defense team fully intends to continue its own independent and complete investigation into the circumstances and cause of their client's death. This investigation would include taking legal action, if necessary, to view the pivotal camera footage near his cell during the night of his death. Seemingly always waiting to throw his hat into a 3-ring circus, sitting United States President Donald Trump responded to Epstein's death by retweeting an unfounded conspiracy theory from a user named Terrence K. Williams, linking Epstein's death to former President Bill Clinton and former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. A spokesperson for the Clintons, Angel Orenya, tweeted, "Ridiculous and of course not true, and Donald Trump knows it." White House counselor Kellyanne Conway defended Trump's retweet, saying on Fox News Sunday that he wants everything to be investigated. CNN host Jake Tapper later criticized Trump for the retweet, saying the State of our Union is appalled that Trump had used his massive Twitter platform to spread a deranged conspiracy theory. Attorney General William Barr stated that he was appalled by Epstein's death while being held in federal custody, and that his untimely passing raises serious questions that must be answered. Barr then ordered an investigation by the Justice Department's Inspector General, in addition to the FBI investigation. Senator Ben Sasse, chairman of the United States Senate Judiciary Oversight Subcommittee, later wrote a letter to Barr saying the Department of Justice failed. He added, given Epstein's previous attempted suicide, he should have been locked in a padded room under unbroken 24/7 constant surveillance. Obviously, heads must roll. For them to pull him off suicide watch is shocking, said Cameron Lindsay, a former warden with experience working at 3 federal facilities. Lindsay went on to tell NBC News, for someone this high profile, with these allegations and this many victims, who has had a suicide attempt in the last few weeks, you can take absolutely no chances. You leave him on suicide watch until he's out of there. Federal prosecutors in the case called Epstein's death disturbing and emphasized that they would continue to seek justice for his accusers even after the financier's death.